Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, continue. So, we did part 1, section 2, chapter on ceremonial religion, which says, Tad etat satyam, this is the truth. This is not the truth, this is that truth. The works which the sages saw in the hymns are spread forth in the 3 Vedas. You must understand that the Vedas are supposed to be revelations, intuitions that happened to sages in ancient times. They were not written down till very late. And they were all scattered. And Vyasa, the Veda Vyasa, was the person who compiled it and put them in some kind of systematic order and made it into the 4 Vedas. Before that it was just many people had many intuitions, many experiences, and they just chanted them. Nobody wrote them down, to learn by rote. And then Vyasa came and put it all together. In fact, the word Vyasa in Sanskrit means a composer. So you could have Veda Vyasa or some other Vyasa. So it means a composer, one who composed everything. So that's why they are saying the works which the sages saw in the hymns, the ancient sages, now are spread forth in the 3 Vedas. Perform them constantly. Satyakamas, who lovers of truth. Kama is desire and Satya is truth. Those who desire the truth, listen to it. This is your path to the world of good deeds. Yata lelayate, here we read this. When the flame, this is the whole flame, when the flame which moves after the fire has been kindled, then one should throw with faith his oblations between the 2 portions of melted butter. He whose Agnihotra sacrifice, Yasya Agnihotram Adarsham, Apurnamasam, Achaturmasyam, Anagrahyanam, Atiti Varchitam Cha, Ahutam Avaishvadam, Avidhina Hutam Asaptam Tasya Lokan Hinasti. He whose his Agnihotri sacrifice, which means the sacrifice of the fire. Hotar is one who does the sacrifice, who pours, and Agni is fire. He whose Agnihotri sacrifice is not followed by the sacrifice of the new moon and the full moon, by the 4 months, by the ritual performed in the harvest, is without guests, without oblations, without the ceremony to all gods, or gives offerings contrary to rule. Such conduct destroys his world till the 7th. Which means one who lives without performing his duties to the earth, to the powers of nature, to the gods, to everyone by giving offerings. When you say offerings, you receive so much from the world, you give it back to the world. These are the offerings. When you do that, if you don't do that, then these are the different sacrifices explained. The sacrifice of the moon, the 4 seasons and so on. When you say sacrifice, what does it mean? To give. If you lead a life only taking and not giving, let's put it plainly, then you, for 7 lives, you cannot get free. 7 is a metaphor. We'll be still coming back again and again and going through the grind. That's what they're trying to say. So, while you do your world's lead your life. While you fulfill your needs, remember that you also are obliged to pay back to the earth what you derive from there. And this is called the sacrifice of the fire. Sacrifice of the moon is a cool light of the moon that you receive, that you give back. And so on and so forth. Grains, you give back grains which you have to eat, you also give some back. So this is the sacrifice. A definition of a sacrifice is you give and not only take. And if you don't do that, then your life is miserable. Even this life is miserable. Have you ever felt the wonderful feeling when you've given something? And not always grabbing. So, now the sacrifice. I need to go a little bit diversify into another Upanishad. I'm sorry, I hope you don't mind. Because it defines what sacrifice is. There is a beautiful Upanishad called the Katha Upanishad. Katha. It's here in the collection, but if I go and chant the Sanskrit, then it will take time. So let me just explain the gist of it, because it is linked to this sacrifice, what they're talking about. It's called the Katha Upanishad, probably also from the Thiruvananthapuram. In this, there is a beautiful little story of a young man and how he understands what sacrifice is. I hope I have the freedom to move around a little bit among the Upanishads. I didn't guarantee that I'll stick to one, but I'm going to, but let's go and come back. It's exploring consciousness. So, there was a great sage whose name was Vajashravas. The great sage Vajashravasa performed a sacrifice. Meaning, he lit the fire and he invited all the people, the Brahmanas who do the sacrifices. You can do yourself in a small way, but you want to do something big, then you invite many of the experts in it to come and do it. So they all came, and the fire was lit and the oblations were put into the fire, and he was doing the sacrifice to become all-powerful. Some people want to be free, some people want to be powerful. So he said, I want to become like the gods, so let me do the sacrifice. So he invited. Now the sacrifice was over, and when a sacrifice is done, it's called a yajna. The people who come to do it, to perform it, by singing the chants and pouring, they're called the priests, the Brahmanas, and the Vipras. So they have to be given gifts. The main thing is not only pouring in there, but to offer gifts to those who performed it, help to perform. So this boy was very small, 8 years old or so, standing there and looking at his father, and he was astonished. His father, who was supposed to be a sage, a wise man and so on, was giving gifts to the Brahmanas, which were completely useless. Cows which were lame, cows which were blind, cows which had no milk, cows which were about to die, sick, he was giving away as gifts to the Brahmanas. Boy was an intelligent boy, and he asked his dad, what kind of a sacrifice is this? What are you sacrificing? Nothing. You're giving away what you don't want, waste. Because when you say sacrifice, it means giving up or giving away something you love the most. This is a sacrifice. So, asked this question. They say that the father was angry, but I doubt if he was angry. He was a sage himself, so he probably said this so that the boy will go through the experience and understand life. So the boy asked the father, so real sacrifice is when you give away something which is dear to you. I am your dearest object, only son. Who will you give me to? Will you give me away to somebody as a sacrifice? See, serious question. And the sage said, they say in anger. I said, but I don't think it was anger, something else. He said, I give you away to death. Death. Because he was a sage, that's what the Upanishad says. The moment he said, I will give you away to death, the boy died. Or he went away to the king of death. In the Hindu pantheon, the Lord of Death is called Yama. Yama, the Lord of Death, who sits somewhere, we don't know. Certainly not in Switzerland. Somewhere. So this young boy, his name was Nachiketas. So this Nachiketas went to the court, to the kingdom of Yama, who is the Lord of Death, because he was ordered to go. I give you away to death. The strange thing was that, now this is sacrifice. And when he went there, Yama, the Lord of Death, this was done in short notice. Even the Lord of Death didn't know what was happening. He had gone to pick up some other souls somewhere. So this poor Nachiketas had to wait in his consulting room, in his office, front office. There's not even a receptionist. Waiting for Yama for 3 days. So after 3 days, Yama came back and he was very kind of moved by this, very sad. He said, because according to the old rules, if a guest comes to you, you have to look after his comfort, you have to give him water to drink, you have to ask him what about food, and so on. And he says, here you're sitting, a young yogi with a shining face, waiting for me for 3 days, and I haven't asked you anything. The definition is Atiti Devo Bhava, a guest is God. I didn't do anything. So, in compensation, since I'm powerful, ask me for 3 gifts, 3 boons, B-O-N-N-S, boons. And as a compensation for making you wait here, without even asking you if you're thirsty, I will give you 3 boons, ask for them. Interesting. And the boy, he asked for his first boon, which is quite nice of him to do that. He said, when I go back, may my father welcome me without being angry. Simple. And also may he recognize me. Because he is face to face with the Lord of Death, which means he has attained immortality. When this happens, even you physically also there are some changes in the cells. There is a glow. And when I go back, my father, who is this guy? So he said, may he recognize me and may he welcome me without anger. Granted. Yama said, okay, done. This will happen. Okay? Now the second boon, Nachiketas asked him, some say that there are ways to reach heaven where you enjoy for many lives without fear of pain. Can you teach me how to get there? Yama said, fine, I'll teach you how to get there. And he talks about the fire inside, the fire of desire to reach a higher state of existence and how to go about it. And from then on, he calls this sacrifice for knowledge, the fire of knowledge, as the Nachiketas sacrifice. He names him in his honor. Okay, the 2 boons are over. There's still one. So says Nachiketas. Now is the important thing I want to ask you. Some say, when the body dies, it's all over. The clock. No, there were no clocks then, I'm saying. A clock, it works, then it stops working. Nothing remains. Is that correct? Or does something remain? You are the Lord of Death, you should know. Or, if it remains, is there some way how I can be free of death forever? Is there something by which I can be free of death forever, become immortal? Mrityorma amritam gamaya. May I descend into the immortality. Is there something ascending to me? Yama says, look, little man, why don't you ask me something else? Ask me for anything you want, okay? Don't ask me this question. It's not easy to explain, but and he offers him many temptations. Yes. Says, do you want to be beautiful and have a great body forever and so on? And he says, do you want to rule over the three worlds and the three realms, become the king of these three realms? Do you want elephants and horses and a big band of musicians and dancing girls? I'll give you anything you ask, but this question, keep it. Don't ask me now. Nachiketas. Now we must give it to Nachiketas, really. He says, okay, keep your dancing girls and trumpets for yourself. I don't want any of these things. If you think that is the most difficult thing to answer, that's exactly what I want. I don't want any of these things. So in this Upanishad, it's shown what kind of a seeker finds truth finally. Of course, Yama answers and tells him what to do and how. But here the most important thing in Upanishad is the kind of guy who really finds it finally because he wants nothing else. Suppose I go to not me, suppose you go to a guru and say, I want to find out the truth about myself, I want to be immortal. And the guru says, man, forget it. First of all, I don't know what you're talking about. Possible. But I have a lot of power and energy, so I have a lot of money, I have a lot of wealth. So why don't I give you a Rolls Royce instead? And hands him the keys. Normally, what would one do? Oh, who cares about immortality? Give me the keys. Thank you very much. But when Yama offered the three words and dancing girls and music, Nachiketas said, I am not interested in all this. I want the core. I want to find out if one can be ever free of death. Then of course Yama explains to him that there is an immortal element in you which never dies actually. Neither does it get born nor does it ever die. That's your inner being. Find it and you're free forever. In fact, Yama is very pleased that this guy is behaving this way. He says, yes, I found a real seeker. And then he teaches him how. And it's very simple actually. He says, nobody really dies. Your true essence, the core of your being, is never born and never dies. Understand this first, and then move inward where it sits in the heart, in the center of your being, in the core of your being, and find it. And when you find it, there is no death. The body may die, but you don't. And he says that is called Amrit, that which does not die. When you go to temples, they give you something very sweet to eat. It's called Amrit. The real meaning of the word Amrit is nectar. It also means Amrita, deathless. And then of course he tells him that the best way to do it is to go deep within and chant the sound of Om, which Yama says to Nachiketa, is a bridge between this world and the next, as pure sound. So, why did I go there?
Sacrifice.
Yes. Who said that? Are you a French Nachiketas? And then there's a beautiful description about the fire sacrifice and the flames that come out of it. The description is about different kinds of flames. Kali, Karali, Chamano Java, Chasulohita, Yacha Sudum, Brahmarna, Spulingini, Vishwarupi, Chadevi, Lela Yamana iti Sapta Jihvaha. Says the tongue has 7 moving flames. Fire of sacrifice. When the flames go up, there are 7 tongues of fire. They are the black, the terrific, the swift as the wind, the very red, the very smoky colored, the spark blazing, the all-shaped goddess. So here suddenly a description is quite metaphorical from the abstract to the concrete. I mean, this is how the Upanishads work. So going up there, suddenly down you're looking at different kinds of fire. It is symbolical expression of the 7 tongues of fire, meaning, and they have been identified as a goddess. So can you think of anything connected with 7? Which is also connected in some way symbolically with the goddess, so the feminine energy. The Devi, the sparking Devi, is the Kundalini. The word is not used here, of course, because that word is derived from the Tantras. It's not used in the Upanishad. But it's talking about this fire which, when lit, where is it lit? In the Mooladhara first. We have to learn Kriya, so it's good to learn slowly. We are going very slowly. Instead of from the abstract, we are following the Upanishadic procedure from the abstract to the concrete. So, the lowest center of consciousness, which means in the human being, in the body of the human being, the lowest center of awareness is what is called the root center, the root chakra. It is also called Mula Adhara, which means root foundation, R-O-O-T, root foundation. And it is always represented by a sacrificial homakund of 4 sides, like square. You'll see it in mandalas, you'll see it in Shriyantras, you'll see it in many places. First there is a square, and that square is the Mooladhara. And then there are many lotuses in it, in different circles, till the center where there is a dot, which is the bindu. And this is where the shining goddess, sparkling goddess is supposed to live, unknown to us generally. And for all functions in the world, according to the Tantra, one needs only awareness in the lowest center. You don't need it anywhere else. It's enough, even for being a physicist or an artist or an woodcutter or everything. All that is required is awareness in that center, because that is the center connected with solid world, 3-dimensional world. When you light the fire there, fire of desire for ascending to the higher levels of consciousness, from the lowest it goes to the next, it goes to the next, it goes to the next. And these different tongues of fire are the symbols given for the different centers and their colors. And as the flame moves up, you know how those old lamps which we had, you turn it and then slowly you go. In the same way the flame goes up, and as it goes up to the seventh center. When it has gone there, then your consciousness or awareness has ascended to the highest and subtlest level possible for a human being. And as it goes, it licks the different centers, the fire. In some of the tantras it's described that the mother goddess we described early, tongue out, dances up the centers, and at each chakra she licks it and goes up, lights the fire. And then when it reaches here, one has reached the highest level of consciousness possible for a human being, where one is close to that which is beyond all measurements, all definitions. So this is the discussion of the moving tongues of fire. Whosoever performs works, makes offerings on these tongues, shining tongues, at the proper time. These offerings lead him on to those worlds where the gods abide. Here plural gods is used because at each center one's mind opens up to different energies and different forms, gods. That is the single one. When it touches here, then everything is subsided and there's only one. The radiant offerings invite him, saying, "Come, come," and carry the sacrificer by the rays of the sun, honoring him and saluting him with pleasing words. This is your holy world of Brahma, won through good deeds. So by doing good deeds and by understanding the meaning of the fire, one ascends to higher realms and one is welcome there. And then one's frontiers open up and one is no more confined to a small little silly human being. You're a human being, but better. So now you'll see that constantly there is reference to the path of the sun and the path of the moon in the Upanishad and in many other texts. The reason being that in the yogic anatomy physiology, little different from normal anatomy physiology, there are many nadis, channels of energy, channels through which energy moves in the human system, of which the most important are three: the left, the right and the center. For most of us, in most cases, the energy moves either to the left or to the right. There is a central channel called Sushumna, the Royal Highway. The straight and narrow path. Now in that, usually we are not aware of that. We are only aware of left and right. So for all actions in this world, it's enough for the energies to move through the Ida and the Pingala. Now the Ida, which is on the left side, starting from here, is called the cool energy, or the moon. And the right one, Pingala, is called the sun energy, the hot. In fact, the word Ha in Sanskrit means positive sun, and Tha means the moon. So that's why yoga sometimes is called Hatha Yoga. Some people think Hatha Yoga means physical exercise. No. It is a combination of how to manipulate the Ha and the Ta, which mean the moon and the sun energies. Which is why there is constant reference to sun, moon, traveling through the sun, traveling through the moon and so on. It is how the consciousness or awareness travels through these two sides. While these two are important, from the yogi's point of view, for liberation, to reach the highest, the main channel is the central one, which starts at the bottom of the spine, which we just discussed, the Muladhara, where the fire is lit, and goes straight up to the top, where there is a 1,000-petal lotus. And in the middle of that 1,000-petal lotus sits the jewel, shining. Jewel of your true consciousness. Om Mani Padme Om, which is there. Mani is jewel, Padma is a lotus. Om, jewel in the lotus, Om, sits here. So, this is why this moon and sun has entered the picture. Not to complicate us or confuse us, but now, they also say, these 18 sacrifices of the sun and the moon are actually belonging to the inferior activities, because they have not touched the central channel yet. The movement is on the left or on the right. The deluded, who delight in this and think they are moving up, fall again into old age and death. Deluded that by performing these sacrifices in the lower levels, physically, with only the sun and the moon involved, that they have achieved the highest. Unfortunately, they haven't, so they fall back into old age and death, because they haven't discovered the immortal self that neither grows old nor dies. Is the recording going on? Might be useful, but I don't know anybody explains. Continue. We are not doing Kriya. The moment we start, practically has to switch it off. Not fair. So, here the rishis are talking about those who are satisfied with these external sacrifices and with still living on the level of the lower centers of the sun and the moon, thinking that they have achieved everything. He says they're deluded guys who again fall victim to old age and death, not having realized the immortal essence, which neither grows old nor is ever born or dies. Avidyayam antare vartamanaha swayam dhira panditam manyamanaha janganyamanaha pariyanti mudha andhenaiva niyamana yatandaha. Beautiful statement. If you thought that the blind leading the blind was first said by Shakespeare, you are mistaken. Is this at least 1,000 years old? At least, maybe more. What does the Rishi say here? It says, abiding in the midst of ignorance, wise in their own esteem, thinking themselves to be learned. Then he goes a little brash. Fools, inflicted with troubles, go about like blind men, led by the blind. Blind leading the blind. It is those who think that while they are happy in this world and do all these sacrifices for wealth and this and that, and stay only in the sun and the moon and haven't found the original self. Some of them don't know that they haven't found the original self. So proud in their knowledge, they also set themselves up as teachers and leaders of men. So how does that work? It's like the blind leading the blind. Both fall into a ditch. Andhene vanyamanaya danda. Beautiful state. In fact, the Sanskrit sounds better than the English. The blind leading the blind. Okay. Andhene vanyamanaya danda. Then it says, Ishtapurtam manyamanaha varishtam nanyachrayo vedayante pramudha nakasya prashthe tu sukrute anubhutave man lokam hinataram vamishanti. These deluded winds, they say men here, please, it includes women also. These deluded men, regarding sacrifices and works of merits as the most important, do not know any other good. Having enjoyed in the place of heaven won by good deeds, they again come back to this earth with a body that grows old and dies. Now, there's a beautiful description. But But those who practice austerity and faith in the forest, the tranquil knowers who live a simple life, depart freed from sin to where dwells the immortal, imperishable person. So, the contrast is between those who are only interested in this and those who live quietly in the forest, contemplating on the inner essence, a simple life. The tranquil knowers who live a simple life, they depart freed from all sin into that immortal, imperishable person. So, having scrutinized the worlds won by works, of course you can win many worlds by work, by doing various things. If you work hard, you can make millions, or if you work hard in this mystic field, you can reach high levels of higher worlds and see beings and so on and so forth, but that's not the answer. So they're saying, having scrutinized the worlds won by work, let a wise man arrive at non-attachment. After seeing all this and saying, hey, this doesn't seem to work. Somebody is happy with me only as long as I give them money, or keep saying every day, I love you, I love you. I don't know why people don't get tired. Anyway, so when one sees this carefully and decides that this is nonsense, it doesn't work. Nobody really doesn't love anybody else. These are no outside expressions. And seeing the suffering of the world and how we are also part of it. And also seeing how it all ends. It's very interesting to note, we are actually not so much afraid of death as the fear that you will have to leave everything that you love. If somebody guarantees you, hey, you're going to die tomorrow, but you can take everything you want. Please, I'm not talking about young lovers. Some people are looking very distraught. Suppose somebody guarantees, when you die, you're going to die in a week, but don't worry, you can take your house, you can take your car, you can take your wife, everything. Who's afraid of death? So it's not so much a death, we don't know anything about it. So if you don't know something, you're not afraid of it. It's the fear that you have to leave behind Unfortunately, we have to. So, before that happens, the Upanishad says, can you leave it behind, at least in your mind, and say, this is not going to stand me in good stead in the end. Can I find something, if there is something in me which is eternal and immortal? If. And having seen this impermanent world and becoming non-attached to it, for the sake of the real knowledge, let him approach a teacher who is learned in the scriptures and established in the Supreme Brahman. So, having got fed up with everything, let him approach a teacher who is learned in the scriptures and has reached the Brahman. Why learned in the scriptures? He could have said simply one who has reached the Supreme Brahman. Because the scriptures are there, which are methods, they teach you the methods to impart the knowledge of the Brahman. You may know it, you may not even know how to impart it. There have been cases of great yogis who have reached that and who refused to teach and remained in silence. But there's one thing, if you really reached, and have attained that silence, even if you sit silently with a person, you do get something out of it, without words. Because even if you explain by words, you're explaining something which cannot be explained by words. So it is in the silence, you know. Yeah, Maharaj is a contemporary known person in this respect. I want to say something, I don't know whether I should say it. There's a little boy also there. Young people are also here. So. What should I do? Because it's very similar to what is being said, but in the world of human beings, physical world. You know, when two people are intimate with each other, I'm going to put it in very flowery language. When two people are intimate with each other physically, and then the whole process, whatever, I'm trying, mystical words, language, and there is physical coming together of the two. So there's a lot of noise first, all that. In the end, utter silence. You cannot even think for a second. Everything is gone. Of course, you think afterwards. Sometimes I wonder if this whole thing, the drama, is to reach that completely thoughtless stage, even for a minute. Almost thoughtless. Only awareness. No words. Can you describe it? No. That if this can happen in the physical world, in a lower level, what about up there? You're speechless. So, unto him who has approached the teacher, whose mind is tranquil, and who has attained peace, let the teacher, knowing teacher, which means a teacher who is able to understand the mind of the seeker, teach its very truth, that knowledge about the Supreme Brahman, by which one knows the imperishable person, the true. is described as ena aksharam purusham, Veda satyam, that indescribable person, the imperishable one, the true. Now, again, the next sloka says, Tad etat satyam, this is the truth. As from a blazing fire, sparks of life form, issue forth by the thousands. Even so, beloved, many kinds of things issue forth from an immutable being and they return finally back. Just as in a blazing fire, these innumerable sparks come out and then they go away back in there and there's nothing but the fire. In the same way, from that immutable being who is the blazing fire, come these sparks which we call the living beings, and in the end they disappear and there is only the blazing fire that remains. It's a nice metaphor. So the challenge is to know that you're not just the spark but the blazing fire, really. Divyo hi amurtam purushaha sabhahyapyantaro hi ajaha aprano hi amanaha subhro aksharat paratah paraha. Divine and formless is that person. Please note that there is a person, not thing. Thing then becomes inanimate. Right? So the Supreme Reality is not an inanimate something, it's a person. But not a person as we think. Something beyond. So, divine and formless is the person. He is without and within, unborn, without breath, without mind, pure and higher than the highest immutable. Too many words used, because the Rishi is trying to capture something which can't be uttered. He is trying to form as many words as possible to try to explain it. There's another Upanishad which also defines the Supreme Person, the being, as saying, Tad dure, tad vadantike, it's far and yet it is near. Now this cannot be. Either you're far or you're near. So it has to be something which is all-pervading. Isha vashyamidam sarvam. And how does one get there? When all grasping has ceased. Even in meditation, all grasping has ceased. And you are settled in your pure form, tranquil, without movement, then perhaps it is revealed. I said perhaps.
Excuse me, can I ask a question about this? Does it mean that God has no mind? Because you said it's beyond mind, so he cannot think.
When I say mind, here what they mean is the mind which we ordinarily know of, the human mind. Which needs experiences and observations to think. When you say no mind, they're talking about that which is not the ordinary mind. Not like our mind. It does, definitely there is something similar to mind because it's not a thing but a person. A person is not a thing. So there is mind but not the mind that we are thinking of. We are thinking of very small, narrow minds, which are only interested in ourselves. Nothing wider than that. And the good news is that it is not so far away as you. That's the great hope. Tad dure, tad, but as You think it's so far, it is so near. Somebody said it's nearer to you than your own jugular vein. So after going everywhere, we come back into ourselves and see the deity sitting there. In India, we have an expression, antaryami, one who is sitting inside.
We usually are used to concentrate on our hearts because we have the impression that our heart, or somewhere here, is the center of all our feelings, sensations, and remember, in most of the yogic texts, we read about the sahasrara and the upper part of the head on which you should concentrate. What is the reason for this difference? And what's the truth?
Okay. I can escape by saying the truth is unutterable, but I'm not going to. The truth is, I think the truth is, that when you say heart, you're not talking about the physical heart. You're talking about the feelings that you have. And when you usually have feelings, and when I say I usually point out here because there is a natural feeling up here, something happening. Well, in yogic terminology, it's called the anahat, the unstuck sound, the anahat chakra. So, this is that which connects us to the world and therefore with feeling. You say I, no? Do you say I? You generally say I. You say, oh, terrible, but you don't say. So, it's not the physical heart. It's the center among the 7 flames, 7 tongues. This one which is here, which is called the Anahat, is the center where you have to necessarily touch before you go here. There is no, you can't skip this and go there. If you skip this and go there, then you will have to come back. So this is an important center for us. In fact, it's called the Hridaya, because Hari, Daya. Daya means compassion. It means the center of compassion. Otherwise you'll might become a brainy creature but not the heart. So this is a very important center, you understand. So therefore, even Ramana Maharshi said, heart, of course he said right, it doesn't matter right or left. We can also go on the middle path, it doesn't matter. But it's here in this location. In many disciplines, the heart center is very important. However, ultimately, the energy has to reach the sahasrara. So there is no contradiction between the two. And it's nice to develop the heart first and then move forward.
It's more sweet than whatever easy.
This is also sweet, but yeah. I understand what you're trying to say. It's human, more devotional opening of the heart and so on. But even here, when finally the awareness ascends to the Sahasrara, 1,000-petaled, where the jewel sits in the lotus, there also it's very sweet. You feel very sweet. Not only just sweetness in a metaphorical sense, but there's something sweet going on inside. You can taste it somewhere near the neck. And if you taste that, then port wine is of no use.
Can I ask something more? Is it true that we get sometimes helped when we have good intentions I feel like you get helped on the way if you follow a good intention. Is it true, the feeling is true, or is it only that our frequency, the frequency of our energies and awareness has become one for a few seconds, at least with the rest of... How is it? Is it a grace? What is it that helps us?
Can you say that again?
Sometimes when you try to realize
No, I can hear it.
something with your good intentions,
Uh-huh.
that you feel
She's
like
quite okay. She doesn't need the mind. Right? Okay, fine.
you think like you've been helped. And, you don't know what is it, but it's a positive energy you get on the way to reach your destination. Is it
So what's the question?
is it the grace, shall we call this the grace, or is it true that our intention gives us this power and help from the this universal awareness, this creator?
No, but when we read the Upanishads, the creator is one step below the universal supreme.
So what is this energy we get when we have good intentions?
See, if you have good intentions and you need help, where does your feeling be? Inside you, right? You have no system by which you can send it by the Swiss postal order or something. No, you cannot. So, it is inside you. And even if you have to send it somewhere, you don't know where that post office is. So luckily for us, human beings, the post office is right here. So, when the mind is so intent upon getting something, especially something that's good, not only for you but not harmful to others, then it goes into the being that sits in your own heart, and the answer comes from there. Only thing is, once if it doesn't work, you shouldn't get upset. Maybe you deserve something better. See, we have to always distinguish between what we need and what we want. Sometimes what we want may not be what we need in the ultimate sense of the term. And it is from inside, it's not anywhere outside. Of course, it is also outside, but the only way we can contact is through inside. If the supreme, whatever reality that you seek is all-pervading, it must be outside also. But we can find it first only inside. And when you find it inside, then you discover that it is also outside. We cannot find it outside. Yes, sometimes we can, very rarely. Suppose you're walking in the woods, in the forest, nobody there. Just the birds here and there. And it's nice and cool, and there's a beautiful breeze blowing, and you hear the sound of the leaves when the wind blows, and for some time you sit under a tree and you're doing nothing. Then you're finding it there also, outside. You're not you're not consciously trying anything, which means what? Your conscious mind is not interfering. And therefore you see the vastness of the forest and the moving of the leaves, and then you are there. But for that first you need to learn how to keep the mind calm, and that work can be done internally. So first touch here, then touch there. Although it's everywhere. Then these are general descriptions that everything that you see on this earth comes from that being which is beyond. From him are born the Rig Veda, the Sama Veda, the Yajur Veda, the rites of initiation, all the sacrifices the ear, the sacrificer, the worlds, etc., etc. Which means the whole world. It's come from there and therefore goes back there. From him also are the gods born in manifold ways. The celestials, men, cattle, birds. Now here is a catch. The in-breath and the out-breath. Somehow this breath is linked to the divine being, the Supreme. Okay. In the old Semitic text, says that the form is created and then the divine breathes the breath of life into it before it becomes alive. So there is this breath that is so important. So after saying all this, it says it is also linked to the in-breath and the out-breath. From him come forth the 7 life breaths, the 7 flames, their fuel, the 7 oblations, the 7 worlds in which move the life breaths, 7 and 7 which dwell in the secret place of the heart. Which means there are 7 centers, there are 7 types of pranas, breaths. As they move through the 7 centers, each one opens up and one finally goes to the highest, which rests in the heart. When you say heart here, it simply says hridaya. It does not talk about the physical heart. So it means the center of consciousness. Now there's a lot of description. From him are the oceans and so on and so forth. And the person who figures out, there's the last sloka in this section, 10th. The person who figures out that the source of all rests in the place of the heart, he has found the truth. Manifest, well fixed, moving, verily in the secret place of the inner being, such is the great support. In it is centered all this which moves, breathes and winks. Know that as being, also as non-being, as the supreme object to be desired, as the highest beyond the reach of man's ordinary understanding. Now there is a practical suggestion given after this. Till now we were floating in philosophy and speculation and abstract metaphysics and so on. Suddenly it comes down to a practical instruction. And what is that practical? Dhanurgritva Upanishadam Mahastram Sharam hi upasani sitam samdatati ayamatad bhavagatena chetasa lakshyam tad evaksharam saumya vitti. Taking as the bow, B-O-W, bow, not bow. Taking as the bow, the great weapon of the Upanishads, one should place it in the arrow sharpened by meditation, and drawing it with the mind engaged in the contemplation of that Brahman. O beloved one, know that imperishable Brahman is the target. Upanishad is the bow, the arrow is meditation, and the Supreme Brahman is the target. So use the Upanishad as the bow, use meditation as your arrow, aim at the Supreme Being, and shoot. In another Upanishad it is described, use the mind as the bow, use Om as the arrow, and target the Brahman and shoot. Now, there's something very interesting. In Zen, archery is a very important practice. So what happens? You have a bow, you have a target, you have the arrow, you have the, what's that thing? Bowstring. You fix the back side of the arrow on the bowstring. You hold it. There is the target you want to touch, the Supreme. Here is the arrow you have of sharpened meditation. You put it on the bowstring and you pull it taut. Everything is ready. Now, says the Zen master, would you hit the target if you release or hold on? Release or hold on. But still it requires holding. Yeah? So it requires effort, but in the end, let go. First, take the bow out, fix it there. Everything is ready, one pointed. You need to hit the target. Then the arrow goes, otherwise the arrow stays on the bowstring. So this is the art of meditation and how to hit the target of the Supreme. You need to prepare everything. You need to prepare your meditation. You need to systematize and work on your life. You need to keep as simple as possible and free yourself. And then you aim your mind onto the Supreme Brahman. And then you discover that if you keep on keeping it taut and tense, you need to let go before it strikes. Therefore the Upanishad said, Tena tyaktena bhunjita, let go and rejoice. Letting go is very difficult. Not only in meditation, in daily life. We cannot let go. I'm not saying give up, let go. Can we let go of all the hurts that we had in our lives? I'm sure in this life, how many years, we must have had many hurts and many pains. Can we let go of it? Half the tranquility of the mind is established if you let go. Can we stop thinking about those hurts and pains and sorrows that have come to us, and therefore the enmity we have towards that person who has caused it? Can we? Well, it's too much to say, bless them that curse you. At least can you let go of the curse? At least. Maybe somebody could, but at least half your meditation is done, because the string is no more tense. So, before we wind up, we're going to go have a good lunch. I'll tell you a little story. It's nice to start with a story and end with a story. Parables are always good. Look at the Bible. So, I don't have to tell you who the Buddha was, everybody has heard of him. So Buddha had a very intimate disciple whose name was Ananda. He was also related to him, distantly, and he was always with him, constant companion. And one day, Ananda was also a great musician. He used to play the veena, the stringed instrument called the veena. So one day, Ananda was kind of vexed with a certain philosophical problem, metaphysical problem. Buddhism is full of metaphysics, like, is this world real? Is it not real? And so on and so forth. And he was caught up in some metaphysical problem, which he could not solve. And he said, if I don't solve it, I have no peace of mind. My mind is not settled. And he was on the rough ground, walking up and down, till he got his feet cut and bleeding, but he wouldn't stop. So the Buddha was watching him. After some time he said, Ananda, come here. Don't tell me your question, what you're thinking of, but come here, sit down. Okay, go and bring your veena. So Ananda brought his stringed veena instrument. He gave it to me. And Buddha started, it has knobs with which you can adjust the strings. He started slackening the knobs till the strings were very loose. And he gave it back to Ananda. Ananda said, "Sir, but I can't play on this. The strings are slack. I cannot play on this." He gave it back to me. Turned tight. He kept on turning. Ananda said, "Please stop. The strings are too tense now. They're too tight. They're going to break. They're going to crack." So Ananda, "How do you play your music?" He said, "You have to do it in a certain way, and you should neither be too tight or too slack. Then you get the music." Yeah. So he said, "Are you expecting the solution from your mind? Because it's too tight now. Loosen it a bit. Don't let it be slack, but make it medium." So that's called the middle path. I always advise people, after going into a great deal of philosophical and stepping down in meditation, the Kundalini is not and all that. Get out into the garden, go for a walk, forget about it. And come back and sit down. Something may happen even without you knowing it. Seriously. It's not the way. Yeah, you should. Then you go mad. So there we are. People who know martial arts, they can tell you. When you're emotional or you're angry, you're not allowed to strike because you'll always strike wrong. Calm, tranquil, peaceful. Then you know what to do, everything is accurate. Right? Don't strike in anger.
Like that.
Yeah. It's like that. There should be a middle path. Should be something. In fact, that's very interesting. That judo is called the gentle way. Jiu-jitsu is a gentle art. So, what's gentle about it? Which means so in Kerala we have an art form called colouring. Colouring is very old. We are also taught that way. Don't strike when you are emotional. Be calm. Be quiet. Probably the mother of karate, I don't know. Yeah, so I'm going to release the bow now, please. It's too tight. This morning the string has been too tight. So release, let go and rejoice and have a good lunch and come back. While you eat your lunch, I'm going to spoil your happiness a bit. When you eat your lunch, while you eat the food, keep this in mind that time is eating us. Fact. My master used to always say that to me when I sat down to eat. Well, remember, when you're eating, time is eating you. Later on I started eating when he was not there. I couldn't enjoy the food. So if you don't want, it's okay. You get a beautiful mango to eat and you're about to eat. Imagine, time is eating you, so the whole taste is gone. Thank you. Om Shanti, Shanti. We'll come back. My aim is that when you go back after 3 days of retreat, you have at least an inkling of an idea of what it's all about. Then I'm happy. Otherwise I'm not.